Happy Friday mga katribu and welcome to another episode of Kalingang KaTribu Legal Diaries. I am Venice Bautista and today we are again joined by Aranas Cruz, Arana Parker, and Faustina Law Office's Associate Lawyer, Attorney Alfred Campañano. Good afternoon, Attorney!
Good afternoon, Miss Venice.
Hello po. So in today's episode, we will talk about something I would consider as controversial just because na ang daming questions lagi na nagsasurround dito sa topic natin, which is annulment and legal separation. Okay, so for the first question, just to clarify things, no, what is annulment?
Annulment, actually, to be clear lang, no? To be clear, pag sinabi mo kasing annulment, this is a form of divorce.
Okay.
Because basically, this is the legal procedure in order to sever the marital tie or the marital union between husband and wife. Now, the reason why I said that it's a form of divorce, because basically that's the end goal. You're basically ending the marriage so that both spouses can remarry again.
Okay. So, and it's different from divorce how po?
Well, the difference really with divorce proper or yung divorce na what we know and annulment as contemplation really that depends on the jurisdiction. Because again, the jurisdiction meaning depending on the country where that law is being granted or given to its citizen. Kasi for example, as I said, annulment is a form of divorce. So, in fact, hindi mo pwedeng sabihin that it's illegal for the Philippines. Na it's illegal in the Philippines to have a divorce because the correction there is annulment and declaration of nullity of marriage is basically a form of divorce. Now, the difference then really is how we treat or what is the effect of that specific divorce. As divorce, as the general public knows it, would be that the effect of divorce is that the marriage is valid until is actually valid for that specific period. And then moving forward, pag nag-sever na yung tie, then wala na yung marital bond. So there is a point in time that the law will recognize the marriage as a valid union. As opposed to annulment as contemplated here in the Philippines is it's void, and if it's been annulled, it's considered as void ab initio. So meaning from the very beginning, it is as if the marriage never happened.
Oh, okay. So thanks for the clarification, no? Like, pero ano naman po yung parang field ng legal separation? What does that cover?
Pag sabi mo ng legal separation, at least here in the Philippines, no? Legal separation is basically the separation in board and in bed. That's all. So, pag sabi ng legal separation, this is normally resorted to by individuals or by spouses, wherein there really is no ground for annulment or declaration of nullity of marriage, but because of certain circumstances as enumerated in the family code, pwede silang maghiwalay at hindi na sila mag-live together as husband and wife. However, the core difference here is In annulment, you are allowed to remarry. Choose another partner,
Yeah.
kung si first, yung ano yun, yung si first the one mo, hindi na pala siya, the second pala ang mas importante sa buhay mo, then magpakasal ka kay the second. Pero sa legal separation kasi, Ms. Venice, is kung sino man yung akala mong the one, siya na yan talaga. Nagpakasal ka. And if you're legally separated, you're not allowed to remarry. Kahit si the second pala ang iyong the one.
Okay.
Kung klaro yun, no?
Okay, so, syempre, mas okay kung annulment nga ang ipa-file, right?
Well, I suppose the consideration there is what's the purpose of you wanting to separate from your from your spouse. If the reason lang is that ayaw mo lang, yung talagang hindi mo na siya gusto, or hindi na talaga healthy ang relationship to be living together, maybe you may want to contemplate legal separation. Because if you're not really intending to marry again, then why have the marriage annulled in the first place? But at least for legal separation, there are certain protections on your part and on your property that that basically serves the purpose of being separated. And if your goal really is not to remarry, then legal separation is actually a viable option.
Okay. So, for example, I filed legal separation now. Can I still file for annulment later on?
Actually, it's possible because there are different causes of action naman.
Okay.
So, baka naman talagang there are valid grounds that would cause the annulment of the marriage or the declaration of nullity of the marriage. Then that's also possible because they're separate and distinct remedies or causes of action to a person, to a married individual.
So, attorney, I wanna know, and I'm sure that our katribus also would like to know, yung grounds ng annulment and yung difference niya sa grounds din ng legal separation. As you said kanina, di ba, if you can parang tolerate naman na, mas stay pa rin kasal.
Kabisado. Normally,
Okay.
pag may nagko-consult dyan, I just go. However, for legal separation, I think that's Article 53 of the Family Code. While for annulment proper, that's 45. Pero napapansin nyo kanina, I've been distinguishing. I've been using terms annulment or declaration of nullity. Because the common understanding of the public is annulment. Yung term na annulment is basically yung naiisip agad nila psychological incapacity, yung ganyan. But legally speaking, there are actually two kinds of annulment to be understood here. First is yung declaration of nullity of marriage, mahaba yan. And then annulment proper. Pag sinabi mo annulment proper, ang dito papasok yung nakalist sa Article 45. So for example, within 4 years after your marriage, natagpuan mo that he is a habitual drunkard or actually a drug user, then that you can actually annul that within 4 years from the consummation of the marriage. Diba? So that's an example of the ground in Article 45. While in declaration of nullity of marriage, it has the same effect. You're severing the marital bond, but the grounds are more, it's actually complicated in Article 36, which is psychological incapacity. But there are also other grounds for declaration of nullity of marriage. So for example, is nagpakasal yung dalawang couple.
Okay.
Dalawang couple, no? Nagpakasal ang dalawang tao na walang marriage license. That's actually, if that has a material effect on the elements of an actual of a valid marriage. Or the solemnizing officer, meaning yung priest or yung mayor, hindi naman pala authorized to solemnize the marriage. Then you can have your marriage declared as a nullity. Okay. So all of those are different. So parang what I'm driving at here is annulment is different from declaration of nullity of marriage. So when people think of psychological incapacity, in the Philippines, that's not annulment proper. No? Hindi yan yung annulment na kino-contemplate natin. This is basically declaration of nullity of marriage. But they have the same effect, no? You're terminating the marriage and you're severing the marital.
Okay. So how about naman for people na, 'di ba, legally separated na sila, pero for a long time talagang yun lang yung status nila. Can they still parang long separation, does it automatically like nullify the marriage?
It does not. Because again, di ba parang ang laging sinasabi sa atin dyan, there are three parties to a marriage.
Okay.
The husband, the wife, and for the religious individuals, then that would be God. But technically speaking, there are three parties kasama dyan si government. Because it's a special contract na may involvement and may interest ang government natin dyan. Why am I laying this down? Because considering that there is a public interest, no, in the protection of a family, the foundation, in the interest and protection of marriage being a foundation of the family, then it is the state that has the authority to more or less end the marriage. Sila yung nagpa-provide ng grounds. So basically, complete separation in fact for a long time is not one of those enumerated grounds to declare the marriage as a nullity or to have the marriage annulled. Yung living separately for a long period of time. However, siguro kung if you're living together for a long period of time and hindi mo na alam kung nasan siya, meaning talagang off the radar siya,
Wala na.
then your remedy would be presumptive death. You have to have your husband or your wife declared as presumably dead by filing a petition. 4 years or 2 years as the case may be.
Okay, so kapag ganun ba, pwede nang ma-nullify yung marriage na yun?
It's not really nullification, but you are it's not nullification per se, but the idea here is you're allowed to remarry. But
okay.
since it's presumably dead, presumed lang siya, sumulpot out of nowhere yung husband mo and had entered and executed an affidavit of reappearance, then say goodbye to your second marriage.
Oh my
So basically,
oh my gosh, that's so sad.
di ba? Parang ganun siya. But at least, somehow, the law allows you to, move on a bit with your life. A bit. Pero kapag sumulpot yan out of nowhere, balik ka to square one. Because that marriage is annulled.
Talaga na-nullify na yung second marriage mo.
Wala talagang finality. Yun lang yung parang the risk that you run, no?
Yeah.
Kasi nga hindi mo naman talaga alam kung namatay eh.
Oo.
And then you're living separately. So for so long already, wala ka ng balita, ganyan. But it's possible na parang after 4 years of you not knowing where he is, you had it presumed that you have him declared as presumably dead. Eh baka naman parang teleserye na nalaman yumaman ka, nag-reappear siya, but yun yung siguro that's one instance where a person who's found when you're living separately for such a long time, then that person can actually remarry. If you have him or her, if you have the spouse, yung separated spouse as presumably dead. But again, you run the risk of the second marriage or the subsequent marriage being contested because it's always subject to the reappearance of the actual spouse.
There we go. Ayun. So, ngayon ko lang nalaman yan. Thanks, attorney, for clarifying. So now, how do we file naman annulment and legal separation? May difference po ba ito or same, department, agency?
As far as how, the manner on how you file this, you basically file it via a petition. So, annulment, legal separation, or even declaration of nullity of marriage, it has to be judicially decreed. So, meaning, idadaan mo yan sa court. So, you prepare a petition, seek the assistance of counsel, then have it annulled or declared as nullity, or you have your marriage, or you seek for legal separation. So you file it with the appropriate family court, and if walang family court in the area, then you file it with the RTC kasi yun naman yung equivalent niyan. Tapos you file it at yung venue of the filing is at the option of the petitioner, whether at his or her residence or at the residence of their spouse. Of course, option ng petitioner.
I see. So now, what is the effect naman if the annulment or the legal separation is granted by court?
So, sige, para ako nagre-rest. Pag declaration of nullity of marriage, so let's look at the first standard. Let's look at the child. Kasi more often than not, may anak na yan. Diba? Pag walang anak, walang issue. So, pag may anak, pag declaration of nullity of marriage ang petition na final mo, and the court granted your petition, then the effect on the filiation of the child is they become illegitimate children.
Oh my gosh.
Because the effect of a declaration of nullity is, it is as if the marriage never existed.
Happened, yeah.
Kaya nga yun yung parang fancy word na void ab initio.
Okay.
Diba? Parang ganyan yung ano niyan. As opposed to an annulment. Pag yung annulment, yung sinasabi under Article 45 of the Family Code, annulment is valid until annulled.
Okay.
Valid yung marriage until annulled. So, if you successfully have your marriage annulled under Article 45 of the Family Code, then there is a recognition of the effects of the marriage. Because at the time the marriage was executed, it was valid. And then so, parang ang nangyari niyan, valid ang marriage. For example, nagpakasal. Kunwari tayo, Miss Venice, pakasal tayo today. Tapos, the effects of our marriage is valid. But, at the time na inanal mo na ako on December, moving forward, wala na yung marriage. So, consequently, the filiation of, kunwari may anak tayo, legitimate child yan. Kasi valid yung marriage at the time that they were born.
Yeah.
Kasi obviously, pag legal separation, since it does not terminate or it doesn't sever the marital bond or the marital union, then legitimate pa rin yung bata, yung anak in that scenario. Now, as to property relations, di ba, dito papasok yung mga mayayaman na nagpapa-annul or nagpapadikla ng nullity of marriage.
Yeah.
Ang point dito is, let's start off with the premise na what is yours is mine and what is mine is yours. Ganyan ang the cheesiest way to describe the property relations between husband and wife. So, in those scenarios, pag nagpa-declare ka as declaration of nullity of marriage, then, again, ibalik mo yan. It is as if wala nga talaga kayong property relations. Right? If it's annulment, ang mangyayari niyan is the absolute community property or the conjugal property, as the case may be, will have to be dissolved and redistributed. So, i-distribute mo na yan. Parang basically, babalik mo din naman. And then moving forward, wala na kayong ina-acquire na properties together.
Yeah.
And that's also for legal separation. Same effects. You distribute the absolute community property, or you distribute the conjugal property of conjugal property. And then, moving forward with your lives, whatever property you acquire after legal separation is generally exclusive to the specific spouse.
Okay. Grabe mga katribu, ang dami ko nang natutunan ngayon. Talagang yung mga first time ko lang nalalaman right now as I'm talking to attorney. And before we know more about this annulment and legal separation, we will take a short break. Pagbabalik po kami.
Be updated sa news and happenings KaTribu. Hatid ng Daily Tribune sa inyo ang mga balitang napapanahon sa loob at labas ng bansa. Kami na ang bahala sa paghahatid sa inyo ng mga latest and reliable news. We got you covered sa programang Tribune News on Q. Mapapanood mula umaga hanggang gabi, Lunes hanggang Biyernes sa Daily Tribune Facebook page at Tribune Now on YouTube. makinig at makisali sa usapan every Friday night at 6 p.m. sa I Speak KaTribu Podcast. Samahan sina Daniel at Alvin na pag-usapan ang mga relevant topic na tiyak kakarelatean nyo mga katribu. At pagdating ng Sunday at 7 p.m., Speak Your Mind with our I Speak program na sasagot sa mga tanong regarding the latest and relevant issues sa paligid natin. I-like at i-follow nyo ang Daily Tribune Facebook page at Tribune Now on YouTube para updated ka sa mga latest episode namin mga katribu. Non-stop showbiz update ba ang hanap nyo? Sagot na yan ang aming Tribune Extra. Balitang entertainment at lifestyle, mapa-local man o international, meron kami yan. Manood at makichika na kasama si Kim Sancha, Lunes hanggang Biyernes, alas 5 ng hapon sa Tribune News on Q at separate premiere nito ng alas 7:30 ng gabi. Mapapanood sa Daily Tribune Facebook page at Tribune Now on YouTube. This public service advisory is brought to you by Daily Tribune and 100.3 RJFM.
Oh, vaccination, isolation. Gotta keep up with my nutrition. Gotta maintain my body condition. Then I can take my vaccination. What do I choose? What do I take? As long as it is not a fake. AstraZeneca, Moderna, BioNTech, even Sinovac, okay na. Pababakuna ka ba? 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 Vaccination for the nation, no more isolation. With vaccination, pababakuna ka ba? 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 Paturok, paturok, paturok.
This public service advisory is brought to you by Daily Tribune and 100.3 RJFM.
Welcome back to Kalingang KaTribu Legal Diaries. I am still with Atty. Alfred, and we were talking about the grounds, the effects of annulment and legal separation. And ngayon naman, Attorney, upon learning about those things kanina, no, I would like to clarify or know more about some situations na I'm sure our katribus are also curious about, no? So first, are husbands compelled to support their wives during legal separation?
During legal separation, hindi na-declare na. Ang alam ko dyan is they're no longer required to support the wife.
Okay.
Kasi nga parang as much as possible, they're trying to give this effect na nga na
Parang
wala na kayong kinalaman sa isa't isa. Pero pag may bata na pinag-uusapan or a minor child at that, then the obligation to support, if for example custody is given to the wife, then somehow if custody is given to the wife, you're still obligated to sorry you are distract ako, sorry. You're obligated to support the child, but not the wife.
Okay. So, what about naman po sa annulment? Ganun din po ba?
Same naman din siya. Kasi parang somehow nga in legal separation, most of the effects of annulment are actually felt. No? The only difference is that the marital bond is not severed in legal separation.
Okay, situation 2. Okay lang po ba na gamitin yung term na separated sa pagsagot sa mga forms, yung mga official documents natin, ganun?
Separated. I have yet to encounter sa mga forms na ganun ang nakalagay sa amin. It's either single, ang na-encounter ko lang naman, single or married.
Ganon. But sometimes kasi siguro like
widower and widower
yeah.
and
Yeah, but sometimes, 'di ba, parang may mga people kasi who really do write separated. Does this count?
Well, kasi kung ganyan naman yan, in terms of the declaration, that declaration, if required, must serve a purpose. Diba? Parang bakit mo kailangan i-declare na separated instead of just simply being single? Kasi nga wala naman na yung there has to be a reason. And that reason must be valid. Kasi parang that is in connection to data processing already.
Yeah.
Na parang in data processing, solicitation of data must always be relative to a legitimate purpose or in line with the business of the person who's collecting the data. So the idea there is that information important enough to have that distinction? If not, then you don't declare.
Okay, so for the third situation, and the last one that we have right now, if let's say a woman is married to a man for almost 10 years, tapos may dalawa silang mga anak, ganon. Tapos 2 years ago, yung lalaki may kinakasama ng iba. And then, wala silang na-file sa court na kahit anong petition para mapawalang bisa yung marriage nila, no? Pwede bang gamitin ng woman yung grounds na may kinakasama siyang iba para maging annulled sila or maging legal na yung separation?
Kung annulment ang pinag-uusapan or declaration of nullity, then that is not a ground to have the marital bond be severed. So the answer is no.
Okay.
But if I recall correctly, that's one of the grounds in legal separation. No? Na kung saan, again, you're still legally married, but you're still legally, but you're separated in more than in bed. Just circling back lang to the earlier question, yung obligation to support the spouse. The idea here is the person who is found to be innocent, as to the person who is guilty,
Okay.
or who is considered to be at fault as the cause for legal separation, that person is still obligated to support the innocent spouse. Yung pala yung isang ko-correct ko lang dyan.
I see. Tapos, follow-up question from earlier, I forgot to ask. You mentioned na parang, di ba, when it comes to annulment, madali lang kung walang anak. Tama po ba? Ano yun, like, pwedeng automatic or kailangan pa rin ng long
Hindi naman
investigation?
Hindi siya sa automatic, but the reason why I say it's easier to handle in terms of handling the case. Kasi there's no issue. Kasi normally, in legal separation or annulment or declaration of nullity, if there is a child, especially pag minor ang pinag-uusapan, that's also going to be an issue. Na kung saan madalas pinag-aawayan din who gets the child. Of course, applicable din syempre dyan yung mga rules on tender age presumption, 7 years and below, ideally nasa mother dapat, etc. But if those rules do not apply, custody, there is this thing you call custody battles, even in annulment or in declaration of nullity or legal separation proceedings, na kung saan it complicates everything.
Okay. So, mapapadali lang bala yung proseso.
Madadali lang yung issues, mas simple, but it doesn't mean na kapag walang anak mas madaling ma-annul. or mas automatic na maa-annul ang marriage.
Okay.
But it simplifies the issues in court.
There we go. Thank you so much for clarifying all of our questions, attorney. But before we let you go, we have the usual Tribuno or trivia, and we'll have a brief discussion about it. Okay, so Tribuno, you cannot marry someone if one of you killed the other person's spouse or his or her own spouse with the intention to marry the other. Wild.
Teleserye.
Oo. Pero
It
totoo
is
lang.
actually, in one way or another, no, if I recall correctly, that's true. Kasi, ano ba, no?
Very soap opera.
I forgot the reasoning here eh. Pero, ang point dyan is, but, it's basically against public policy. Parang yun yung naalala ko dyan. On the reason why, parang, while, true love siguro, bakit na pinatay.
Tsaka wag
Pero
mo
ang
lang gawin,
point
makukulong
here
ka
is-
lang eh.
Dapat, pahihirapan mo pa yung sarili mo, di ba?
Correct. Ayun. So thank you so much for joining us again, Attorney Alfred. We enjoyed the talk and syempre, yun nga, another episode na talagang ang daming natutunan ko and ng mga katribu sa atin na nanood. So do you have any parting words and advice to the people who are planning to file for these petitions?
Well, wala pang divorce. So, for people who, make sure that you marry the right person. Diba? So, for those people who are planning to have their marriage annulled, go through the legal process. Kasi I think the one thing na napapansin ko is may mga advertisement sa Facebook or in social media na parang may mga advertisement na kasal, parang kaya daw nilang i-secure ang annulment in 6 months
Wow.
or 1 year para lang sa halaga ng 50,000 pesos or 100,000 pesos kasama na daw doon. So, don't fall prey into these kinds of advertisement because there is a legal process involved in annulment, legal separation, and declaration of nullity of marriage. So, it's always best to consult your lawyers
Yeah.
in these kinds of procedure. And huwag kayong maniwala. Ayun, ultimately, huwag kayong maniwala dyan. Because annulment and declaration of nullity of marriage is a very tedious proceeding. So there's really no easy way of annulling or declaring a marriage as void. So, huwag kayong maniwala dyan sa mga false advertisements.
Wait, na-mention mo yung price kanina ng ads, no? Nga pala, I would like to ask, usually how much yung, pag-file ng annulment?
How much?
Like, it ranges from what?
Well, normally, it really ranges na mga around 150 to...
Choose the right partner talaga.
But that's in actually no, wala, hindi siya geographic based. From experience, it really ranges from 150 pataas. Tas wala pa dyan yung mga, of course, mga operational expenses. Normally, di ba, kasi the engages may acceptance fee, yung mga ganon. So it's really quite a tedious and it's not a cheap proceeding. But of course, if you do it the right way, kaya na, I think, it's worth it.
Are there government programs that help people who are, financially challenged to go through these
proceedings?
Yeah.
I am not sure, I don't recall, but I'm not sure if the public attorney's office can help. Kasi normally sila naman yung parang mga lawyers that can assist yung mga indigent as long as you meet the standards of indigency. So, but I'm not sure if they can. But I think there are, but admittedly, to be candid, I'm not aware of any.
Right. Thank you so much, attorney, for letting me ask more questions. Kung kailan let go na kita. Thank you for joining us once again on this episode of Kalingang KaTribu Legal Diaries. And thank you rin sa mga katribu natin na laging sumusubaybay sa episodes ng Legal Diaries. I am once again Venice Bautista. You can watch us live on the Tribune's Facebook page and Tribune Now on YouTube at 3:30 p.m. on Fridays. And yun, stay safe guys and make good choices. Bye!